best days can still be ahead, and I want to lead us forward. Join me now in the Reid Revolution.
Thursday morning, the Reid Revolution. I'm John Reid. Very, very glad to have you with us today. Wow, the temperature has changed a little bit. And why? I'm starting with the weather again. Which is, I cannot stand talking about the weather, but this is a pretty significant change. Where it was 80, what did we hit? 81 degrees yesterday, and it was lovely. I went and walked around the lake yesterday. The birds were out. I'm kind of worried if all the animals are fooled into thinking it's spring. When we get down into the 30s tonight, that will have a really negative impact on them. I'm sure they will be okay, but the other thing is I'm excited this year about all of the flowers, the beautiful cherry blossom trees that are here in Richmond, and then, of course, the big Cherry Blossom Festival that takes place up in Washington, D.C. I've got a couple of things planned, and when I was a kid, I thought that was the cherry blossom. Who cares about the cherry blossom trees? Who wants to see that? When I was a kid, that was my attitude. And then, I don't know what it is. I think as you get a little bit older, you might start to appreciate anything that people actually take time and effort to make look nice, including planning a tidal basin with a bunch of beautiful trees that for, if you're lucky, 1 week really are gorgeous. It's not that you don't see things that are nice, but you just maybe have an appreciation for how difficult it is for a culture and a society to get their stuff together and actually put something beautiful in place. Maybe that's one reason I enjoy the traveling so much is in seeing the grand remnants of old societies. Is that as you get older, you realize how tough it is to have the money or the vision to build anything that anybody would even want to take a second look at in another decade, much less another 100 years or 1,000 years. Think of a lot of the junk that's going up today from an architectural standpoint. Nobody's going to want to see much of this stuff later. Even the grand buildings of New York, most of them are really just glass boxes with really no architectural distinction to them. Maybe I'll feel differently towards the end of my life when I go, oh, well, this was really impressive. Maybe I'll feel differently if the economy collapses and we can't build anything like that anymore. There's just not that money left in the United States. I hope we don't get to that place because I've certainly been to countries where, there's one really, really rich family or one really, really rich person. Maybe the government can get its act together and build something in the modern era, but they're kind of stuck with whatever they got because it's impossible to pull that off. But I have an appreciation for any kind of planning, not central planning, not socialism, not economic central planning, but people who actually do execute on nice ideas that are dramatic and wonderful and beautiful. And I'm kind of keeping my eyes open for that. It's in decline, though. It's in decline, just like our society is in decline, which is kind of what I wanted to talk about to get us started today. Now, I know a lot of the people, it's great. It's kind of surprising to me how many people watch this program, either in the clips that are available during the day or live here when we go on the internet. From outside of Virginia. So I never want to make this show like my old radio show, which was kind of hyper local. Still had Virginia stuff and regional stuff and national stuff, but it was hyper local. But I think we can tell a story about what's happening across the country by illuminating some of this uh, bad stuff that's happening in our midst here in Central Virginia. When I grew up here in Central Virginia, if you were in the suburbs, it was a relatively safe place to be. I'm not going to say it was no crime, nothing bad ever happened. That would not be true. I actually caught a cop killer who had been raping a woman. I was the one who called the police and turned the guy in. Um, when I was in middle school, I got up in the morning and was watching the news, and they had talked about how this poor woman was raped behind a school building on a road that was being built. Cop rolls up on it, tells the guy to stop. The guy pulls out a gun and kills the police officer. I mean, it was big news. This was back when we had a society where killing a cop, everyone went, "Whoa, wait a minute. Oh, you're in trouble now." And people were not happy about it. They thought it was awful, and they knew that the society and the powers that be, the members of the legislature, the police chief, the prosecutor, that everyone would say, "Now you have really crossed a line. A regular murder, that's bad, and we're going to go after you. But killing a cop, especially a cop who's on duty, who's protecting people, oh no, we're not going to put up with that." Now, I sense a difference culturally. We've made cops targets in our society. Now, everybody hears about something like that and go, "Well, what'd the cop do?" I mean, give me a break. Good luck, people. Good luck. You've got a society that is out of control, and you got nobody to police it. You may be a good person. I hope you're a good person. If you're watching this program, I hope you're a good person. But there are plenty of people who aren't, and there are plenty of people who will immediately substitute what they want in place of the law. And they won't give a damn how it affects you. They will not care. And you've got nobody now who is willing to protect you. The street cops aren't answering the calls. They're not engaged the way they used to. The prosecutors are looking for reasons to let people out and come up with this ridiculous empathy for folks who have committed crime. I mean, look, you steal a candy bar out of the Food Lion. Okay, why'd you steal that? Have you stolen anything before? You know what? You're going to have to pay for that. And then, you know what? We're going to let you off this time. But if anything else happens, we're going to put you in jail or something to scare the person into not doing it anymore. And I'm assuming it's a kid, not an adult. Maybe if it's an adult, you ask them whether they have any food, or do you have no job, you're living in your car. Okay, there are reasons to have some empathy for people when they make a mistake, but not when they deliberately break the law and harm other people. See, I mean, this is the distinction. I don't get this really bizarre empathy for people who have consistently demonstrated that they're going to harm other people. And the message has gotten across. It's been at least 10 years now, in my observation, where we've been overtaken with this empathetic mindset, this criminal justice reform, which is anything but reform. I mean, it's one thing if you're stripping people of their clothes and you're making them go and work in 100-degree weather, breaking rocks, and they move the pile of rocks from point A to point B, and then the next day you make them break the rocks and move it from point A to point B, and there's no point to it, and you're abusing them and you're whipping them, and things that have happened in society that are horrible and terrible and harmful to individuals. We don't do that stuff anymore. So why are we feeling some sense of guilt about our justice system? The only thing that I would be worried about, and I think we've got to take this very seriously, is whether we're being honest, whether we're fairly adjudicating things, whether we're equally prosecuting person A and person B. You don't get off the hook because you've got this color skin or that color skin, or because you're a man or a woman. I actually think we're not doing a very good job of that. I think we let women, in some ways, get away with things that we wouldn't let men get away with. We clearly have a group of prosecutors who are reluctant to prosecute African Americans who behave badly. I think that's a problem. And we're not honest. We're not allowed to be honest about it, because what I just said, I guarantee you, by tomorrow, there'll be people on the internet who are saying that this is a racist statement. It's not a racist statement. It's a statement that we're not following the law and enforcing it equally. I thought that was what we had agreed that we were going to do, is follow the law, hope and make sure that our laws are fair and that we are going to equally enforce the law. So, you're going 116 miles an hour, reckless driving. It doesn't matter who you are. You're going to be thrown in jail for that. So, if you're somebody who is a blue collar worker who doesn't have a lot of money, has no connections to anybody in government, you're going to jail for reckless driving at 116 miles an hour without some sort of excuse, like your wife is pregnant or you're escaping from the mob. I mean, 116 miles an hour, it's reckless driving. You've put other people in jeopardy. You're in big trouble. But here in Virginia, it appears that we're not doing that, because you saw that the guy who just got elected as Attorney General was going 116 miles an hour. You know, he's got connections, family connections. We're going to let him off the hook. Oh, you know what? And we'll slap your hand, and you have to do some community service. We're going to allow you to lie to the court, and then you wind up doing the community service for your own operation, your own campaign and political operation. But no one cares. No one cares. And then we're going to elect you as the Attorney General of Virginia. Look, I'm partisan. I admit that I am partisan. But does that make sense to you? Even if you're a Democrat, come on, level with me. Does that make any sense to you? You think that that's fair? When you know that the same young black man who works in a factory, who gets caught going 116 miles an hour, who doesn't have any family connections, who isn't involved in politics, is really going to be in trouble. And no one wants to call it out. No one wants to call it out. And the people of Virginia didn't seem to give a damn about it. They elected the guy to be Attorney General. So the message has gone out in this society, and it's a real uh, corruption, not just of the government, but a corruption of our mindset, that these things don't matter anymore, and that you can do whatever the hell you want to do, especially if you're in a minority group. If you're in a minority group, there is a certain, I don't think you should be walking around with your head down, not looking at anybody. Oh, please don't bother me. I'm a minority. No, you shouldn't feel that way. You shouldn't feel that way. Um, I can imagine there was a time where a lot of people felt that way. Women felt that way. I can personally testify the gays felt that way. There was a time not too long ago where if you showed any public display of affection, I'm not talking about anything that would be inappropriate for anybody to do, but just, touching somebody at all, hugging somebody at all, man, you could get the what kicked out of you in the parking lot at the mall over here. That could, you know, not happy times. So it's good that minorities and others do not feel like they are subjugated in this society, but there's a certain attitude that has taken over in some groups. They can do whatever they want, and you're not going to say anything about it. You're not going to. And I'm not talking about just disapproval, like my standards. If you listen to the radio program, you've listened to this program, I'm a little judgmental about people. It's true. I don't think I'm unfairly judgmental, but I size people up. Generally, I recognize though that my opinion is irrelevant. It doesn't matter unless you're impacting me. I don't offer my opinion on people. Yeah. I have an opinion. You can show me a photo of just about anybody. I give you an opinion, but I'm smart enough to know that it's irrelevant. And why am I going to waste my time judging someone else? Live your life. There are plenty of people who I think are total freak shows who have done much better financially and are much bigger celebrities than I am. So who am I to be critical? It doesn't change my opinion of those people. I mean, heck, every day we do the best and worst of the internet, and I show you people who are probably pulling in big money, who I think are total freak shows. But it's not my place to judge. Live your life. But when you start harming other people, when you start breaking the law, when you start impeding other people, doing things that are harmful to the society, regardless of who does it. Well, and then you think you're going to get away with it because you're a minority. Now, that's a different situation. Can we agree on that? That's a different situation. The punk white guy at, like, I went to a pretty prominent, wealthy private school. Oh, here at St. Christopher's. I'm glad I went to St. Christopher's. I had a good experience there. I think I was well educated there. I was exposed to a lot of really intelligent, thoughtful people, not all of whom agreed with me. It was a good experience. But I will tell you, there are people who have tons of money and they grow up getting whatever they want, and they can have an attitude of, I'm going to get away with whatever I want to get away with. Well, no. At some point, somebody's got to slap you down and say, no, you don't get to behave outside of these parameters. Sure, you may fly to, my family, we're going to the Motel 6 to spend 2 nights at Virginia Beach. Your family is spending a week on a yacht in the Mediterranean. Okay, fine. You just got to live with that. But if you think that you're going to go out at 2 in the morning and you're 15 years old and you're going to buy liquor and get drunk and smash your car into things and then flip off the cops and scream at the lady whose house you've just trashed, no, you're not going to get away with that. And it takes, unless that person is checked early on in life, that's the way they'll continue to behave as an adult. I've seen it over and over again. That's one group of people with a lot of money and who think that they're immune from prosecution, from judgment, from any kind of consequences for their behavior. Then you've got another group of people that doesn't have any money, that's a part of minority groups that have been abused in the past. And this is what's weird. Now the pendulum has swung to another place, to the other extreme, where you're not worried about being abused. You are so bold, you'll break the law and flip your middle finger right at everybody and tell them to go to hell, as if there are no standards for you that you have to live up to, that you're untouchable. Take this. Here is a report from the local CBS television station. It's the first television station I ever interned for, by the way. Interesting. CBS 6 here in Richmond. On kind of the takeover of a neighborhood where you would normally not see anybody, white, black, young, old, really behaving badly. And this is what happened the other night. Real quick, producer Dan.
Oh my God.
An unexpected scene at the corner of Patterson and Libby Avenues early Sunday morning in Richmond's West End. Crowds of people gathered watching cars doing donuts in the middle of the intersection.
This is on Libby and Patterson.
The woman who shot this video was heading home from delivering flowers to a friend at St. Mary's Hospital on Libby. She did not want us to identify her, fearing retribution from the people involved in the commotion.
Then I tried to turn right to get away from the scene. And when I did that, people on the side of the street that I turned on threw eggs at my car, and I was going rather slow just in case something was to happen or a car was to zoom past me, and were screaming profanities and were chasing after my car.
I mean, is that okay with you? I'm kind of surprised. I mean, stuff happens. But I'm surprised that's kind of a dramatic change in the decorum and the behavior that's expected anywhere in Central Virginia. I would be alarmed if I was in LA, if I still lived in Los Angeles, or if I lived in, I lived in Manhattan for a while, if I lived in Manhattan, or many, many trips to Miami. I would be alarmed if I encountered that any place, because that's lawlessness. It is dangerous. People get hurt. Usually the people who get hurt are the ones who are watching it, and one of the cars that's sliding around miscalculates and runs over somebody. That's who usually gets hurt. But that's not acceptable behavior. Yeah, I don't know what you do if you're out in Arizona and there's no one around and you're drifting or whatever. Okay, That's a different situation. But in a community environment, no, it's not okay. Um, there would have been palpable fear years ago. Oh my God, we're going to do this, and then we better get out of here because the cops are going to show up and we're going to go to jail, and we don't want that to happen. Now, no one gives a damn. They know they're not going to jail. They know no one's not going to do anything to them. And then this is what should really alarm you. If that scene isn't concerning enough for you, listen to the woman. She doesn't sound like an old lady. They wouldn't show her face. So I don't know how old she was, but this is just a woman who's going about her business, and the next thing you know, she's stuck in the middle of some sort of uh, group lawlessness, and she can't get out of there, and they attack her car. Now, I mean, I guess they didn't set the car on fire. They didn't pull her out of the car and rape her or beat her. Oh, thank God that didn't happen. Why are we tolerating any of this? I mean, the prosecutor in Richmond, who is just doesn't is not serious about crime, not serious about crime. They should have arrested, found out 2 or 3 people, doesn't have to be everybody, 2 or 3 people who were involved in that, and charge the hell out of them and basically ruin their lives. In the short term, maybe not in the long term, but in the short term, your life is going to be ruined because the word will get out. Oh, hell no. You're not going to get away with doing this in the city of Richmond. You're not going to get away with doing this in the county of Henrico or in the county of Chesterfield, places where people pay a lot of money and want to feel safe. And I said pay a lot of money, but you shouldn't have to pay a lot of money to feel safe. If you're in a Section 8 housing project in the city of Richmond and you're making no money, you're poor, you should be able to live in dignity and not be harassed and abused and threatened by other people. Is that revolutionary on my part? Is that bigoted on my part to say that you should be able to live without fear of being physically harmed and attacked? I don't think so. Actually, I'm going to say, no, it is not. And if you think it is, then you are the one who has lost the basic standard of decency in our society that everyone should be able to experience. The basics of civilized society. We are losing our civilized society right in front of our face. This isn't a one-off. This is the video that we've got right here. But this is not a one-off. It's happened a couple of times. So clearly there's some people who think this is cool. Maybe they saw a movie with Vin Diesel or something, and they think this is cool. It's incumbent upon us as leaders in the community to say, we're not putting up with it. It's not cool, and you're going to be punished for that. But no one wants to be the bad guy. And unfortunately, a lot of white people are scared to pass judgment on even the most reckless, irresponsible behavior if they're black people doing it. I don't care what color you are. I don't care whether you're white or black or rich or poor or Asian or Jewish or Muslim or Christian. That does not matter to me. If you were putting other people in harm's way, I want to see you hammered for it. That's not me being vindictive. That's not me being ugly. That's me having standards for the society in which I live. And yes, you can hold me accountable for that too. I try to be really, really careful not to drink too much, not to allow my emotions, which if you watch the show, I've got emotions. It's not like I'm some stoic person who doesn't respond to everything. I have emotions. I don't go out in the car and say, screw it all, and hit 90 miles an hour on some suburban neighborhood road where a little kid might be crossing the street. Because no matter how I'm feeling today, I have to be respectful and careful about the other people who live in the community. And if I would assume if I don't behave appropriately, that they're going to hammer me, that the authorities are going to hammer me. And they should. They should. I'm not asking for a double standard. I'm asking for a high standard. It's not really even a high standard, just a basic standard for everybody in the community. Here's part 2 of the CBS 6 report in Richmond on this community takeover that seems to be occurring regularly.
The ruckus woke Darren Williams up out of his sleep. He raced outside to find car after car speeding down his street, Granite Avenue, toward Patterson.
There were 100 people there. There were a lot of people.
And were they all filming essentially?
People were filming. People were yelling and hollering. It seemed very unsafe. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people were flying. I don't know how fast they were going, but people were flying up and down the side streets here and around through this intersection. And, you can see the marks in the street. They were spinning out, drifting, doing donuts, whatever you want to call it.
It's almost like they took over the area.
Absolutely.
And for what benefit?
I guess they were having fun.
Entertainment.
Right?
Both Williams and the woman who filmed the incident say they saw a couple of patrol cars in the area, but they both say they did not see the police take any action.
I mean, I didn't see the police doing anything. That was kind of disturbing to me. I'd like to know what they were doing and if they were taking license numbers or videoing what was going on or, what exactly they were doing, why they were allowing this to continue.
But they were parked further away and well enough away that it appeared that they weren't getting out of their cars.
Now they want accountability to ensure this never happens again.
I think the police need to have license plates numbers and facial recognition to hold these people accountable.
You would be happy to turn over your video if they want to?
Absolutely. Yes. I think something needs to be done.
I mean, frankly, some people should be charged for what they were doing here. And I would like to see less of this kind of stuff going on. It's kind of unnerving.
Right? I mean, you don't have to be a genius. You don't have to be a law enforcement expert to know this is a problem when these types of things happen. And if there were 100 people there, what does that tell you? You've lost control at that point. I mean, I feel bad for the cops. What are the cops supposed to do? In my era, 16, 17, 18, into my 20s, if a cop showed up, if something like that was happening, I'm trying to think of anything in my life that would be reminiscent of that. But the only thing I can maybe think of is you'd come out of a club at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're not supposed to congregate around the club or in the street. And, I don't think I'm making this up, but I mean, there were authorities, people who ran the club or people who were, monitoring the street who would come out and say, all right, you got to go now. You got to go. Everybody get out of here. People would leave. People would leave. It wasn't like, screw you, we're not going to go. People would leave and they didn't want to have a conflict. They didn't want to get arrested. They didn't want to have a problem. Now, do you see what we've done? We've sent a message to that 100 people who were watching that situation and to the guys who were driving those cars. It doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want. And the cops are going to sit over here because they know they can't flip their light on and show up and everybody scatters. They wouldn't have scattered. They probably would have turned on the cops and started attacking the cops. Come on, that's true. That's exactly what would have happened. Maybe not everybody, but all it takes is, 10, 20 people to attack the cops, start throwing bottles at the cops, start throwing rocks at the cops, disobey the cops. I mean, that could have been a bigger disaster than just a show of recklessness. It could have really hurt someone. So as a result, you've sent a message to the reckless kids that they don't have to obey the rules. You've sent a message to the cops that you're not going to back them up. I mean, I don't know the people who were interviewed in this interview. They could be 100% law-abiding people, so I'm not impugning them. But let's be honest, how many stories have we seen from 2020 on where very nice white neighbors have criticized the police and they're very upset that the police have intervened? Why were the police so heavy-handed? Why did the police take the person down and wrestle them to the ground and it looked like it was really difficult putting the handcuffs on. This is just, it's too much. The police shouldn't behave that way. I mean, you undercut the police every single opportunity you get, not the two people that were in this interview, because I don't know them and I really do not want to impugn them in any way. They're just observers and I feel bad for them. But there are plenty of other people in that neighborhood, which I'm familiar with, and all across the country, who they want the police to do something, but then when the police do stop a criminal, they don't back the cops up. There's constant criticism for the police. So, listen, if I were a cop, I don't think I would go running in and saying, "Hey, you kids," or "Hey, everybody, break this up." You've emboldened the bad guys to attack me, and then if I do anything about it, I pull the taser out and hit anybody with the taser, you're going to criticize me. God forbid I pull a real gun out and have to defend myself. If someone's hurt or killed, you'll put me in jail. Screw that. Screw that. People wouldn't put up with it. If you're a police officer, why? So what we see, and I'm not impugning the cops. This is the society. This is the result of the bad leadership that Democrats primarily, but some Republicans, but primarily Democrats have ushered in, where you've now created a lawless society, and it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse as more and more people, additional generations of young people grow up being told, oh, you're an oppressed person, or you don't have to obey the law. The cops are evil. What do you think's going to happen? And then here's the awful thing. It's just like the immigration issue. We didn't enforce the law for 30 plus years. So people got used to breaking the law and they built their families here. And so now enforcing the law seems very extreme because we haven't been doing it. Demanding that people who don't have paperwork, who haven't gone through the process, who haven't become citizens, actually get their paperwork in order, option number one, or get the hell out. That seems brutal and terrible. And, it's a much bigger deal now because we didn't take care of it on the front end. If you don't check the ticket of the person entering the movie theater and prevent the people who haven't bought the ticket from getting into the theater and sitting in the seat, it's a lot more dramatic to go around the movie theater and say, "Man, I see your ticket. You got to go," and then physically remove them from the theater. It's much better to stop the lawlessness immediately than let them get into the theater, just as a little analogy. But that's on us as a society, and it's on Democrat leaders, elected officials and prosecutors who just refuse to hold anybody accountable and to uphold some standards in society. Now we're all going to suffer for it. And you're going to sit around and wait until it gets so bad that finally someone runs for office and says, "We're going to stop this crime." And then you just hope that when they have to take dramatic action to stop the crime, that you'll back them up, because it's not going to be nice. It's not going to be nice. Now, instead of locking one teenager up, you're going to lock up 100 teenagers. Now, instead of putting somebody in jail for 10 years, you're going to have the death penalty back, and you're going to have to execute a bunch of killers for murders that shouldn't have happened in the first place because you didn't stop it before it got out of control. I'm not some old sage with a long white beard who's been around for 100 years who's telling you something. I mean, anybody who's ever worked with a kindergarten class should be able to tell you that if you don't start with discipline on day one, my dad was a principal and a football coach and school teacher, my mother too, school teacher. You can always back off. You can always go softer, but you can't undo. If you start out too weak, it's over because you can't really go back. You've got to start out tough, and then you can calibrate from there. So we're now in the process of we're waiting to see when we're going to hit rock bottom, when the majority of the voters feel like this is uncomfortable. It's one reason I want to share it with you, because it'd be very easy to kind of blow this off. Like, I don't even know. That's not my neighborhood. I don't care. You need to care because it's coming to your neighborhood. And the next thing is going to be not just donuts in the street. It's going to be kicking in your door and raping your daughter and taking something from your house that you want. Here's more on the hood behavior. I mean, this is the other thing. Everybody very aggressively calls it, this is ghetto. This is hood behavior. It is. It is. Whether it's white people or black people doing it, it is ghetto behavior. We should not tolerate it from anybody. Here's more on that. Added music to the background. This account. Look, see? Look, they're chasing the cops away. Chasing the cops away. That's what happens. The mob wins. Well, look, now you got that video out there, and this is the bad thing about social media. It's good that we can show you this, but it's bad. I guarantee you every person who was out there that night has now shared this video with all of their friends. And what's the message? You can do whatever the hell you want. The cops aren't going to do anything to you. They don't have they're not backed up. They don't have enough people. You now run the streets. The punks, the kids, white, black, whoever you are, you run the streets. The cops don't run the streets. And maybe you live in a nice neighborhood where at the moment you don't have to worry about it. Good for you. It's coming. It's coming. I woke up and looked in the newspaper yesterday. 40 cars broken into at local hotels around Henrico County, where I live. Nice county. Used to be very, very safe. Didn't have this kind of stuff happening years ago. 40 different cars broken into, and they're robbing the cars. Now, could that happen anytime, anywhere? Sure, it could. But do you not get it? We're creating this environment. And the word goes out amongst people who want to commit crime. It's easy to do. They don't have any security. You're never going to see a police officer, and they'll never really be able to aggressively solve the crime. So this is a great place to commit that crime. Whereas there are other parts of central Virginia where honestly people know if you get caught breaking into somebody's car and they catch you, you might be on the side of a milk carton, but actually your body is going to be in a river somewhere or in a lake because people aren't going to put up with it. Now that's a different type of justice. It's vigilante justice. And I'm really worried that that's where we're headed, because there are some people in the society who feel just as strongly as I do that these things shouldn't happen. I'm not going to take the law into my own hands. They will. They will. They'll blow you away, and that's the last time you'll be seen. You know that's true. It's not just in Virginia. There are places in every state in America where that's probably a possibility. And if we get to a place where it's vigilante justice, I don't think we want to go there. That is not what we want. We want justice for everybody in an organized, thoughtful system where the responsible people are running the show, not where it's a battle between who's more aggressive, the bad guy who's aggressive or the good guy who's aggressive. We don't want that. Now, I haven't seen this clip that producer Dan said I would be interested in. This is Tamika Mallory, you say? Producer Dan, go ahead and play it. Let's see what this is.
Yeah, this is somebody whom Mamdani appointed to a position up in New York. So yeah, it's let's just see the clip and see what she has.
Is this? Do you know what position it is?
I'm not positive without seeing the clip. It's on the clip, so
all right. Let's look at the clip.
Subtitle. Yeah.
Let's look at the clip.
I don't give a damn if they burn down Target. Because Target should be on the streets with us, calling for the justice that our people deserve. Don't talk to us about looting. Y'all are the looters. America has looted black people.
So that's correct. This woman is now
America looted the Native Americans when they first came here. So looting is what you do. We learned it from you.
I remember
we learned violence from.
Yeah. Okay. So here, this is the other thing that we've done. And I haven't verified that she's working for Mamdani. I'm assuming that is correct, but I just want to say that I didn't personally verify that. But that attitude, whether this is somebody who's just on the street or whether this is an elected official's appointee to something, that attitude is growing in the country. You did this 100 years ago. It's okay for us to do what we want to do today. Oh, hell no, it's not. And somebody needs to slap people like that down and say we're not going to tolerate that behavior or that attitude expressed publicly. No, that's not acceptable. But you know that that's not a one-off. That's pretty extreme from her, but that's not a one-off. You hear that, you've probably, if you've been out and about and if you're paying attention, and it certainly if you're on social media, you hear sentiment that is expressed maybe in a more calm way than she is on a regular basis. That I do what I want because of slavery, or I can do what I want because of Jim Crow. I can abuse you today because of what happened in a previous generation. No, you cannot. No, you cannot. And I can't go back and fix what happened 100 years ago. I can't go back and fix what happened 60 years ago, 70 years ago. But I can make sure that, for my part, that we live in a safe and just and fair society today. And fairness does not mean you get to take revenge on other people, especially if it's racial revenge. This is, producer Dan and I have talked about this frequently. I've talked about it with Alonzo too. This concept of racial revenge is spreading all over the country, where there are really entitled people, and it's not just African American black citizens. There's a lot of people out there who feel like because of something that happened in the past that didn't even affect them personally, it's some anecdotal story about what occurred in previous generations, that they can behave badly today. Well, you need political leaders who will not tolerate that, who will not indulge that, who will not fan the flames of that attitude, who will say very clearly, we're going to treat everyone fairly. I'm telling you right now, there are a lot of weak, pathetic Republicans who won't do that because they're scared. I will do it. I know the consequences of it. I know that everybody, all the bad guys scream and yell racism. Screw it. I don't care. You can call me whatever you want. I know that this is correct. To treat people fairly under the law is the way we should be treating people. And the Democrats are emboldening that kind of attitude, not just in New York, not just in Richmond, but all across the country. Somebody's got to stop it because a lot of people are going to be hurt if we don't.
And John, just to let you know, civil rights activist Tamika Mallory was appointed to the public safety team by New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani in December of last year.
So it's true. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that clip? And I think we played enough of it. You know, I don't. I remember when that happened. That made national news. So now she is publicly out there saying stuff like that. I don't think it's a one-off. It's not, her worst moment. I'm disinclined to judge everyone by their worst moment. You got to take notice of their worst moment, because that is, it tells you something about them. But that's her attitude. That's what she thinks. And Mamdani puts a woman like that on a board to help adjudicate these issues. What are you begging for? Are you begging for the decline of the society and additional crime? Is that what you want?
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, meet the new chief marketing officer for Hershey Chocolate. Yeah, I hate chocolate, people. It's like, what are we doing? It's the last person who should be appointed to something like this based on these comments. I mean,
Well, they think that law enforcement is the problem. I'm telling you, law enforcement is not the problem. And I've seen some stuff go down. Back in the 80s in New Orleans and other places, I'm not going to indict people just observationally. And those are unique situations where you got tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people who are drunk and rowdy. And, if you just stand there and say, excuse me, sir, please stop touching that woman. Please stop sexually assaulting that woman. What do you think the result is going to be? It's a really unpleasant situation when you get down in the streets in some of these cities with the behavior that has been tolerated. And the only way to stop it is to be kind of hyper aggressive. And people don't like it when the cops are hyper aggressive. And then, the cops go after one person who's behaving this way, who's a total thug, white or black. And then they go after the next person who is some visitor from, Fifth Avenue in New York, and they treat them both the same way, and that doesn't work out real well. So, but the bottom line is we have a mindset today that the cops are the problem. No, the cops aren't the problem. It's this type of behavior in the streets.
And it was really strange in all the countries. I remember spending, I think you remember, Producer Dan, I think you and I were working together. I took 2 weeks off and went out to Eastern Europe.
Yes.
Do you remember that
Yeah.
when I took the Eastern Europe trip? And
Yeah,
what was one of the things?
One issue with the one border, right? Where
Well, yeah, I did. Yeah, there's always something when you're traveling, especially by yourself in a lot of strange places, but and potentially hostile places. But one thing I noticed in a lot of the Eastern European cities was that families were out at 10 or 11 o'clock at night in the city, not in the suburbs, in the city, having ice cream, pushing strollers with their little children. No one screaming, no loud music. If there was loud music, it was from some little cafe where people were celebrating a birthday and there was a band
now
playing.
that you mentioned it, I remember
It was
when you talked
idyllic.
about this after you got back. Yeah, and you were like, it was the most incredible thing to see this based on what I'm accustomed to in my own country.
Yeah, like you go to downtown Richmond, pick any night. Doesn't have to be a Saturday night, Sunday night. Pick a Monday night. I mean, if you walk around, that's not the atmosphere you're going to encounter, and you're probably going to have an unpleasant experience. Doesn't mean you're going to get robbed or raped or abused or beaten up or anything. No, but you're going to have to watch yourself. Would you want your 80-year-old mother to be in downtown Richmond any night after like 9 o'clock? The answer is no. And I suspect that's not just Richmond, Virginia. I bet you that's Charlotte, North Carolina. I bet you it's Raleigh. I bet you it's Memphis, Nashville, New York. I was just in New York a couple of 10 days ago, 14 days ago. It's reverting back to the old ways where if you're there late, you don't see the same police presence, and they're aggressive panhandlers, and they're broken windows and empty storefronts, even in Times Square. Come on. We are in a place, and I feel bad for young people they've never experienced a town where you could walk your little baby in a stroller at 11 o'clock, which seems kind of late for any family to be out, but whatever.
Although on a baby's timetable.
Baby's timetable, maybe at work. Maybe the baby calms down and goes to sleep. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But you know what? You don't have to plan your life around the street thugs. White or black, whoever they are, you don't have to plan your life around the street thugs. You get to do what you want because it's a safe place. I feel bad for young people who've never even had that experience for one night on a trip, and they certainly haven't experienced in their own society. And that is what we've got to fight back against.
And
I'm 55 years
word.
old. I think we need to get this under control now. Now.
No, reverting is a good word, because before COVID, I thought that the city of Richmond, that's where we are, so I'm talking about it because that's where my experience is, but the city was making strides toward having a safer downtown. And then the pandemic hit, and you had the summer of rioting and everything else, and it completely reverted to.
Well, the
what
city's
it-
always been a dirt hole in my lifetime. I mean,
it's not
it's
great.
my hometown, so I can say it. It's not like, I'm visiting someone's house and telling you your daughter's ugly. It's my hometown. The place is a mess, and it's led by fools, and has been for a long time. I'm so sorry. That's the truth, but it's the truth. And they don't understand basic economics, and they cater to the class of people who bring a place down instead of catering to the class of people who have the money and the vision to bring a place up. That's the fundamental leadership problem of Richmond, is like stupid empathy with people who are not going to ultimately be able to move you forward at the expense of the people who will. So that's the first problem. But I'm telling you, 2020, to your point, Producer Dan, 2020 was when people in Richmond and elsewhere all across the country learned a lesson. The cops are going to be disrespected. The laws don't matter. If you're angry enough and you're in a large enough mob, you will get to do what you want to do, and no one will hold you accountable. And you know what? What's crazy about this is Democrats do know what I'm talking about. They do know that you can send a chilling message to people who want to break the law, because they did it after January 6th. They did it. after January 6th, they rounded up everybody whose phone even pinged the tower, the cell phone tower near the Capitol, and charged them and ran them through the courts and locked a bunch of them up for extended periods of time. They didn't do that because the building was on fire. They didn't do that because it was another 9/11. They did that to send a message. If you come up against the federal government, we're going to hammer you. So you better not ever do this again. That was their message, and I think it was pretty loudly received by most people across the country. If only they could use that strategy when it comes to protecting the average person on the street in their own community, where you make an example of people who harm others. Like this poor lady who's 41 years old who was stabbed up in Fairfax. The woman, a mother of 3 from Fredericksburg, is in Fairfax, and she winds up getting stabbed by an illegal migrant who's already been arrested 30 times. And the cops go to the prosecutor, this Descano idiot, manipulative, horrible, stupid Democrat up in Fairfax. I mean, it's just unbelievable that everyone's tolerating this. The cops say, this guy is violent. He's going to kill somebody. You've got to lock him up. And this Democrat prosecutor says no. Now we have a 41-year-old woman who's dead. The message is going out day in and day out. Whether you're paying attention to it or not is a different story. Day in and day out, we're sending the message to the bad guys and to everybody else that we're not serious about protecting the society. And the consequences are going to be brutal for individuals like this poor lady who's been murdered. But at some point, we reach a tipping point where all of us suffer. Whether we get stabbed in the neck and die or not is, it's spinning the roulette wheel. But all of us are going to live in a dangerous society. And we don't have to live like that. Elect responsible people. Not racist bigots or hostile people, responsible people. That's what I don't understand is when I speak in a way that I think reflects responsible law enforcement and standards of behavior, I'm labeled as a racist. You're crazy. You're crazy to say that. The standards are very basic, to be honest with you. I'm not a Muslim. I'm not saying you have to wear a veil over your head. I'm not saying you have to dress the way I tell you to dress or speak the way I tell you to speak or engage only with the people I tell you you can engage with. I'm not telling you can't stay out at a club till 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm not telling you that you can't have a whole bunch of drinks as long as you go get an Uber. I'm not one of these religious zealots that you seem to have, you are so enamored by. I'm not telling you that. So, but I'm the bad guy for telling you we should enforce the law and make sure that innocent people aren't hurt. Give me a break. You're not serious people if that's your attitude. And I guess I just got to sit over here and try to make sure that my house doesn't get burned down and I don't get stabbed, I don't get shot, no one in my family gets hurt while you figure it out. And then you'll come begging for someone to actually enforce the law eventually. I just hope that that's soon because the downward spiral that we're in is pretty significant. And the last election results indicate that you haven't figured it out yet. We've really got to go through hell before you sober up and say, hey, let's have some basic standards in society. It's a problem. Boy, we talked, almost an hour here.
It's okay. We roll with
Is
the
it okay?
punches. A popular topic. We got a lot of people viewing and watching and commenting. So yeah, this is this.
I didn't
touches a
expect to
nerve.
talk for an hour on that one, but I mean, I'm really passionate about it. This is crazy what we're doing as a society. It's insanity. And I'll just put in a little plug. This gerrymandering thing. If you let the Democrats take over completely, I mean, they're already, at least I hope, temporarily in charge at the Capitol. I think they're screwing up so badly with the tax increases that may be short-lived. I pray to God it's short-lived. But if you let the Democrats take over the Congress and you give up the leadership of most of the state and you have one Republican voice, one out of the 11 Congress people, and you choose not to vote between now and April 21st, well, I mean, you really are just flushing your entire society.
And get
down
ready
the
for
toilet.
2 years of impeachment trials, folks. 'Cause that's how
Yeah,
it's gonna
well,
be.
against Trump, but you
Yep.
know the damage culturally that can be done is going to be unbelievable. You'll have no responsible voices in the Congress at all. You'll have total Democrat left-wing wackos who are pushing the same stuff on a federal level that's killing us on a local level. I pray to God, if you're watching this program and you want fairness, you don't even have to be a Republican. You do not have to be a Republican. If you want fairness, you need to go vote no now, between now and April 21st, and stop this abuse with gerrymandering. We said we didn't want gerrymandering. We said we wanted fairness. All these Democrats run around constantly talking about how they want to defend democracy. Well, explain to me how you're defending democracy when you're deliberately drawing the lines to suppress the voices and the votes of most of the people in the state that disagree with you. Deliberately doing it. You're not even hiding it. You're deliberately doing it and telling everybody that. Give me a break. Please go vote no before April 21st. In fact, go do it this week if you can so that it's taken care of. Because it's all or nothing now. We probably should take a break, don't you think, Producer Nam?
Probably.
Okay. Yeah, got an interesting program for you. Hugh Shakeshaft is up with us in just a couple of minutes. Talked to him earlier this morning, a little too early for me, but anyway, talked to him earlier this morning from London, and what an experience he is having. You know, he's our international expert, was friends with Prince Philip and knows all the political folks in the UK and around the world. We'll talk to him about the news from Britain, which is really disturbing to me. Gosh, I hate that because I love Britain so much. I just can't believe some of the decisions they're making. And then the former delegate from Virginia, Mark Earley, who is an attorney, really a young, dynamic, outspoken guy. He joins us to talk about what he's witnessing at the state capitol, even though he's not in the legislature now. He's one of the people purged. Big mistake there, but we'll talk to Mark Earley. And then producer Dan will join us, and we'll wrap up the program. Stay with us on this Thursday morning, running long, of course, even after the first segment on the Reid Revolution. Back on the Reid Revolution this morning, and whenever we have questions about what's going on around the world, I go to the guy who's lived all over the world over the last 50 years. Hugh Shakeshaft, I think, is in London this morning. Hey, Hugh, good morning to you. Where are you, actually in London?
I'm wearing a tie, John. Of course I'm in London.
Yes, okay.
I have to go to the Cavalry and Guards Club for lunch. How are you?
I'm very well and glad that you can take time to talk to us.
Yeah, it's always back to
Tell
back
me what's
here.
happening with the UK. Things are not great between President Trump and the leadership of Britain at the moment, it seems.
Well, firstly, John, you know I'm quite flippant and glib, and I'm very, very serious in what I'm just about to say. I wish to apologize to your listeners and to the American people for the behavior of the disgraceful Keir Starmer and his government. His treachery and lack of ability to be an ally has thrown a spanner in the works between us, our two great nations. I never thought I would ever have to apologize to our best ally for the behavior of our own government.
Why is Keir Starmer staying at, I mean, the polite way would be to say at arm's length from the Trump effort to rid the world of a tyrant who's killed a lot of Brits, you know, in Iran? Why will he not be involved in this?
He's hiding behind international law. But international law is, you know, it's created by the UN, good God, yeah. And it's created by lawyers for lawyer judges so that they can rule the world by edict. He's an autocrat. He's a dictator, and he's an out and out blatant liar, right? He hates America and everything it stands for. He's a member of the Fabian Society, which was created in 1880 in the UK. Its logo is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Ever since then, it's a cultural Marxist and Marxist utopia seeking group. Hermer, the Attorney General, most of the Labour Party, but in particular, Keir Starmer are members. What it means is, we all talk about the long march to the institutions, how you take over a country from within and then implode the society from within. That is the entire mission statement of the Fabian Society. So he is behaving exactly as the Fabian Society members would want him to do. They want to create a Marxist utopia. He's more worried about his Muslim vote now, which is going to get murdered. He won't be in the job at the end of May. He will be gone. The local elections in May will mean that he is out. He is committing as much vandalism against the culture, the economy, and the greatness of our country than any other politician in our history. And as you know, John, Parliament goes back 1,000 years here, and no one is as despised as this man.
Yeah.
And from that point of view, I was asked by Don Jr. 2 Fridays ago at an event what I thought of Keir Starmer. And he asked me whether I feared going back to the UK a week ago yesterday as to whether I would be arrested. And I said, I don't think so. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it, because I'm pretty scathing, as you know. And I wasn't arrested. Doesn't mean I won't be after this. But, and I said, and he said, well, tell me about Keir Starmer. I said, he is not an ally. You cannot trust him. He is treacherous and traitorous. He hates you and your father, both personally and politically.
Mm-hmm.
I said, he will not be an ally. He will stop you using bases for anything you want to do in any action. And at that point, it was 3 hours before they went into Iran. And I was saying it completely blind, right? And I said to him, he will stop you using any bases. He will block you at every turn, and he will not be an ally to you. I said, and I am begging you, go to your father and get him to veto the Chagos deal, the Chagos Islands deal to Mauritius, which is, as you know, Diego Garcia, which is a major American base on one of our islands that he wants to give away. Oh, and pay them 100 billion to take it. Yes, that's somebody committing vandalism and actually trying to dismantle everything that's been great about our culture and our country.
Well, I did take note, not only about the banning of the U.S. using the bases as a launching platform for the effort to rid the world of the Iranian leadership. That seemed really extreme coming from the Brits. Then yesterday, there were news stories about a new rule that would define Islamophobia or hatred of Islam so that you couldn't speak and offer any type of criticism of Islam, assuming that I'm understanding the new ruling correctly.
Specifically for Muslims, right? 2 things on that. One of the interesting things is once the Iranian regime is gone,
Mm-hmm.
it will be interesting to see who was on the payroll here in the British government. And I say that knowing that there are people, and I will not name them right now, but it will come out, and they are running very scared. Equally, people on the left, and it's the same in the US and the UK, people on the left are resisting Trump to the point where they have zero moral compass. They are willing to have many, many, many Iranians murdered, slaughtered by a terrorist state regime so that they can say, oh, well, Trump shouldn't have done it. International law. Since when did Iran even recognize international law?
Yeah, you can't count on them to obey any law
the only thing you
or
can
sense
count
of
on them to
normalcy.
do, John, is lie, cheat, and just deceive.
Well, let me ask you this.
The much vaunted Obama nuclear deal, which he
Mhm.
gave 1.4 billion on pallets in cash, right? 1.4 billion was done because they agreed the deal. It was never signed by them, and
Mhm.
there was no comeback on that.
Mhm.
Everybody hailed it because it was, the beatified Saint Obama, and they never signed.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it resulted in what we wanted it to result in, and I thought it was stupid from the very beginning. When you're emboldening and enriching your enemy, that's pretty bad strategy.
Yeah.
Obama brought a bunch of Iranian Americans into the White House, and I don't think they were looking out for our best interest. You can't have people who have divided interest. But when you talk about the slaughter, I mean, I've heard 30,000 people slaughtered, 50,000 people slaughtered, 100,000 people slaughtered.
The numbers I
In
got
just,
from the IRGC are 97,000.
I mean, is that true? They went through, somebody went through and shot them, or
this is coming from the Iranian Republican Guards own people, two people who they don't realize are actually working on our team. So yeah, it's 97,000.
you really think that's true?
And that's why you went in at that point, right?
I mean,
Now,
that's a significant mass slaughter, but I'm always skeptical when I hear huge numbers like that, because I
they've had
think
50
how
years to practice, John.
they what?
They've had 50 years to practice how to commit mass slaughter.
Yeah.
You know, and even if it's 20 people, it's 20 too many.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the issue with the moral compass thing is there's two factors in this. There is the moral impediment. Absolutely, you have to go in morally. Okay. Now, you can all argue strategy all you want, and trust me, I've got military guys surrounding me, who don't believe that you can bomb, you can affect regime change from the air. Right? We'll see. However, but because you need people to rise up and you need to arm them and you need all of that. And the thing is, after 50 years, they've basically wiped out any or imprisoned any real opposition that can actually effectively govern or be strong enough to do so. We've got people outside like Reza Pavlina or whatever his name is, right? He's a very nice cocktail hour guy. Under no circumstances is he ever likely to lead. The people of Iran do not want to go back to the old corrupt Shah type regime, and they certainly want Islam out of Iran, right? So, these guys saying, "Oh, we go back. Oh, but he's interim. He's one we like." He's got zero credibility. Oh yeah, the diaspora want to do it, and I will say this to the diaspora: how many of you booked a flight back to Iran yet? All well and good going running around New York, and I'm just around the corner from us. We're right by Downing Street, right? All well and good taking out and waving your flags in Whitehall outside of Downing Street. So that's a big difference between going home and actually help rebuild it. And we know they won't do that. Some will, but many have got many generations here. They're never going to leave. And it's the same in the US. It's easier
So
to
you think that is legitimately off the table, the son of the Shah, the crown prince?
It's being mooted, but anybody, all I will say is, as an example, Trump's no Dumbo, right? Whoever goes in as an interim leader and somebody close to me is being mooted and the president's aware of him, and he won't go. He said, we got to settle it down. I said, whoever goes now will be assassinated within 6 months. Whoever it is, because you're not going to wipe out the factions. There's going to be bloodletting, no matter what. And you can't blame Trump on it. When you remove the regime, there's 50 years of trickle-down denouncements, of secret police, of people knowing whose neighbors had their kids killed. You think they're just going to go, yeah, I forgive you? It's going to be like the French Revolution. More people in the French Revolution, only 8% of people guillotined in the Reign of Terror were actually aristocrats. 9% were clergy. The rest were the sans-culottes and the poor, where neighbors denounced neighbors over anything. settled scores, off to the guillotine, gone.
There's a real fetishizing of the French Revolution and the guillotines. I'm seeing more and more online, in the United States at least, of people who are very enamored by the idea of slaughtering their neighbor. I don't think it's I don't think it's a cute little logo, which wouldn't be cute. I think it's a threat. We're going to kill
Absolutely.
you in the
Look,
United States.
controlling the masses was demonstrated beyond any doubt during COVID. Neighbors denounced neighbors who went out here in England. As you know, I spent my time in Florida on the beach, outside, although
But then you
COVID
almost died.
Yeah, it nearly got me, but bingo, it didn't.
Okay, yeah.
But it got many of my friends. But the whole thing is that but the way you can control the masses was horrifying here, particularly in England.
People went along with it.
Yeah, and you can see what happens in Nazi Germany and everything else. People are sheep. They would rather be part of the group than not. I mean, and we've got the left always has a better chance than the right, because the right is always about individual rights and freedoms. Therefore, becoming collective is very difficult. Whereas for the left, collectivism's easy, and for the average person in the street, they would rather be part of the bigger group than not, or just don't bother me, let me get on. And I always say the greatest argument against democracy occurs when you meet the average voter. And I don't mean that rudely.
It is concerning when people aren't paying attention and they're steering the ship.
But as you know, all humor does have a sense of
a little bit of truth to it.
Yeah. So
what do you think of the news yesterday that Winston Churchill and William Shakespeare and some of the great iconic people of Western civilization tied to Britain are being removed from the pound sterling, the different notes that you have, and they're being replaced with symbols of natural animals and flowers? Seems like an odd choice.
Well, it's an outrage. People are outraged, but it won't change it. It's the government doing what a left-wing communist government does. First of all, to control the future, you have to control history. If you control history, you control the future, right? And by expunging these people, you diminish what has gone before. Everybody goes on, all we ever hear about is, the British and the American slave trade. More white people were traded than black Africans going to the Caribbean and into America. That's the first historical fact. The West Africa Squadron, which was set up by us after we defeated the French and the Spanish at the Battle of Trafalgar, shut down West African slave trade. The biggest slave traders were the Barbary Moroccans and the East African slavers, which were all Arabs going into the Arab world. Existed the Irish. St. Patrick is Welsh. He was captured in Wales by the Irish to slave him to the Vikings. He escaped, came back, and then went back and rid Ireland of snakes, this being the euphemism for political and bad people. So let's be clear. Nobody has got clean hands on this, least of all the African tribes who enslaved their brethren and sold them. And they would have been, they always enslaved each other in Africa. You look at, and the same in Europe. If you fought at Agincourt and lost, you knew as a ordinary archer or soldier, you would be slaughtered. If you were a knight, you would be, they would capture you, a ransom would be paid. But as the average foot soldier, you were dead if you didn't win. For us, we were able to win at Agincourt. We withdrew at Calais and got home, right? But had we lost, that 5,000 men against 25,000, had they lost, all but the knights would have been slaughtered. So that's history. I can't change that. I know we're going off the subject, John. You know what I'm like. But getting back,
why would the public of Great Britain tolerate, in particular, the removal of Winston Churchill from one of the bills that you use? That seems like there's a slap in the face. It's an erasure of one of the great icons of your history. That seems odd that everyone would tolerate.
They don't tolerate it, but what can they do? The problem is we have a government, thanks to Nigel Farage, that has such a majority that he can have 100 people dissent, and he still ram legislation through. They're doing everything early in the reign. You remember when Biden did that absolutely catastrophic withdrawal from Afghanistan within the first year? You got 3 more years. Well, if he did other catastrophic things later. The withdrawal from Afghanistan was just early on. You do all your nasty stuff in the first year, and then hope you can recover by the end because of the short memory and everybody votes their pocketbook. So in England, we have a problem in that there are large swathes of the country now that have a very, very loud voice. One of which is the Muslims, right? And I do not apologize for this. They're culturally not able to assimilate. They do not want to assimilate, most of them. And even the Muslim Council of Great Britain said that the legislation that they were promoting wasn't going far enough.
As far as restricting criticism,
didn't go
being
far
labeled
enough.
as hate, but I would say that it's criticism, and it's odd to me that any group is somehow shielded by the government.
It's a religion. Any religion should be and can be questioned, right? They're not an ethnicity. The issue and this is the problem with Iran. Do you know the history of Muhammad, right? The Shias, Muhammad's grandson, Hussein, was supposed to be bodyguarded by the Shias. They failed and he was murdered. He was killed, right? So ever since, the Shia Muslims have to atone for that great atrocity and allowing it to happen. So they are a death cult. There is nothing greater that a Shia Muslim can do than to die in the name of Allah, to start to lay down his life and his blood to pay atonement for Hussein.
Why do you think so many people don't want to explore this or dismiss criticism or concern as quote unquote Islamophobia, rather than go, no, wait a minute, it does seem like there is a discernible, consistent pattern of violence and death associated with this group of people. It's not like anything we've seen in the modern era, at least amongst Christians or Jews or any other religion. So maybe we should examine this and tap the brakes a little bit before we act like there's no problem.
2 things. One is our tolerance of their intolerance will get us killed. 2, the second thing is our leftist government now and previous governments don't want to grasp the nettle. Britain is lost. 30, 40 years from now, it'll be this. And there's a standard play here. If people are fleeing war, they take their family with them. All those boats are young fighting age men of Muslim descent that are coming across the water to here. The irony is that we've actually had to go cap in hand to protect Cyprus, our bases on Cyprus, to the French, right? Who can't even stop thousands of people getting in a rubber boat on their beaches and getting to us. There is certain irony to that, not reasonable, also asking the French. So what you've seen here is they believe it's now too big to stop. So they'd rather ignore it. It's not going to be my problem. I'm going to be dead. I've got a 30-year-old son. In 30, 40 years, it's going to be that. What generally happens, and you look at it in all countries, Afghanistan, all of them, Jordan, Lebanon. Lebanon was a Christian country. What they do is they get in, they open a mosque, they create a community, then they claim victimhood. Then they want specific minority rules. Then they, once they've claimed victimhood, they claim Islamophobia. They take over. They get into the political system. Bearing in mind there are 19 mayors in this country now that are Muslim. They get into the political system and then they take over and impose Sharia law. And they're already imposing Sharia law in certain areas of districts of London.
And when you say they're imposing Sharia law, what exactly does that mean?
They have communities that are building up. They built communities where they all live in the same place. They do not assimilate. They try to keep people out, and they are running Sharia laws alongside our law. But they say there is no law but Sharia.
So women's rights in Britain would be subjugated depending on where you live, and
gay rights, women's rights, the rights. Look, as Churchill said, to quote the great man, right? When Muslims are in the minority, it's all about minority rights. When they are in the majority, there are no minority rights.
Mm-hmm. And this is going back a century now.
Yeah. So what you've got to look at is, the split with the Sunnis and the under one of the first Ayatollahs, the split with the Sunnis and the Shias is strong. As you know, there was an assassination attempt on Irwan, who's Sunni. All in all, we have a huge issue that we do not want to face. There are problems in certain communities here that have to be addressed. If they can't address them within themselves, then you are legally bound to address them as a nation. And this government doesn't want to do it. He's more worried about his Muslim vote. The day after he denied everything with America during IFTA, he had a meeting in Westminster Hall which was full, and as you know, big that hall is, John, with Muslims in Ramadan, the whole bit, IFTA, where he stated, "You are the new face of Great Britain."
That seemed like a surrender speech. When with the clips that I saw, it seemed like instead of a nice cultural, I'm going to be polite to you during your holiday celebration, which if you're the leader of the country, perhaps that's appropriate. It did seem like a surrender to people who were hostile to British traditions.
He's trying to protect his vote. There's block voting goes on over here, family votes, all of a sudden, and there's a lot of voter fraud in those communities. So what you see is him surrendering to them, wanting to pander to them for their vote. But what he's done is he doesn't understand he's lost that vote to the Greens. And this is just a maneuver by the Muslim community. They've already got 7 independent Muslim MPs who all got elected on Palestine. Well, I'm sorry, Palestine is the Palestinian issue has got nothing to do with local politics and the politics.
It is interesting, Hugh. That is the preeminent driving force for a lot of political decisions overseas, and it seems like that's coming here. It was one reason why the lady that I was running against in Virginia, I made maybe I should have made a bigger deal out of the fact that she marched with the Hamas Palestinian crowd, and that seemed like an odd choice for an American politician.
And the fact that we behave as gentlemen or as a decent people allows people whose entire philosophy is to get elected, power and everything else, and by any means necessary, right? And take that to the extension of how the voter fraud is being clearly demonstrated. The trouble is, these people don't realize they have a tiger by the tail. Get me elected, I'll do what I can, and then but it's it's almost like Stockholm syndrome. Yeah, you've got a situation where they fall in love with the people. We all like a bad boy, right? It's even my wife says that, so I'm still trying to find her one, to be honest. Says he, right? So, but that's the whole point. They get drawn to this, and then they get sucked in by it. And they're very clever at what they do. As you know, I outside of O'Hara's, the Shrine pub at Ground Zero, where they all hot-bedded, I actually complained to a police officer because the soubrettes, and I'm going to name it because it's halal food, I will not eat it. The soubrettes guy was playing the call to prayer outside of Ground Zero, and the police thought it was just Arab music. I said, this is a statement Do you not understand?
Why do you think the West has become so passive about this? I mean, every I don't want to overstate it, but it does seem like every month, is that fair, that there is some sort of violent action that is directly related not to an individual who's disgruntled, but by an individual who is trying to make a statement or avenge or advance Islam in some way. I don't think that's an overstatement. Why are we so passive about it? We've been conditioned to excuse it or ignore it,
Because
and not.
we've actually been indoctrinated into all colonies, all colonization bad, white man bad. We need to atone for it. So they have a point.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. We have a Commonwealth, right? The UK, of 2.5 billion people, which is basically the old empire. And now, we have the Commonwealth Games coming up this year. Everything else, right? So if our empire was so appalling and so bad, they would have nothing to do with us. So why are they still in the Commonwealth? Why do they still, there are 15 nations in the world, including Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, that have the king as head of state. Still, right? And the Commonwealth is looked on with great affection. You get the old nutters in there who want reparations, and the lunatic Justice Secretary here, Lammy, who is just, to suggest he's a clown or a buffoon is an understatement of some magnitude. But who are always going on about reparations and everything else. It's absolutely nonsense.
Yeah, it seems like there's an odd fetish for an engagement with people who, at least a percentage of whom, want your destruction, and it doesn't make me feel good about the future of Western Europe, and it's beginning to make me really concerned about the future of the United States. That no one is capable of objectively, without malice, analyzing what's happening right in front of our face. We have been
Anybody who does any objective, the whole thing is, John, you know the story. Narrative is more important than truth. I remember I was looking back at something I did 10 years ago after a TV show with a friend of mine. We were laughing, and it was when Trump first got elected. I just got back after the election, and he tweeted out that he wanted to have Farage as the ambassador, the British ambassador, which was never going to happen. And everyone said, why is he doing that? And I said, well, first of all, we live in a post-truth environment now, particularly looking at the Hillary Clinton, the file, the dossier and all of that. And I said, but it now appears that we live in a post-protocol system. And that's the whole point. We've seen the breaking down of stuff. I was actually with the Egyptian ambassador last night. Very interesting conversation, which I said I wouldn't disclose on here, about what's going on out there. But the only thing, suffice to say, most people who are escaping the whole region are going out through Cairo.
Yeah.
Safely.
Yeah.
All right,
I know you got to go, and I do too. But let me ask you about Prince William and Prince Charles. Or King Charles. King Charles is supposed to come to the United States in April for our 250th birthday celebrations. I'm hoping that will still happen. I feel like that would be a wonderful moment about the mother country and the United States celebrating this important anniversary and showing that 250 years on, everybody is okay. But there were protests at the Commonwealth service at Westminster Abbey saying, down with the monarchy, destroy the monarchy. And they were it looked large, and it looked coordinated and real.
It's always coordinated, John. But more importantly, Keir Starmer was booed and jeered more than anyone.
Is that right?
But of course, the BBC won't show you that. All they'll show is anti-monarchy sentiment, But, yeah, that's a small minority. Everybody now needs the king more than ever, they say. The problem we have is he followed his mother, who was probably the greatest statesman of the 20th century in actual fact. Met 13 presidents, always had and you never knew what she thought. Now, the king is supposed to be apolitical. This is why he cannot dissolve parliament. Charles I did that, and then they cut his head off. That would destroy the monarchy. It would create a constitutional crisis. But what you look at is, with regard to it, it'll have to be America that states, because the king is apolitical. But he does go where the government of the day asks him. So he entertains. Hence, his mother had to deal with dictators like Mugabe and Xi and everything, and smile through it. I'm sure Charles will have a major say that it is imperative that we go. I just hope people disassociate the king from our current disgraceful, despicable, treacherous, and traitorous government.
Well, it seems like there's a problem. I'm excited about the 250th birthday of the United States, and I'm pleased by the idea of the United Kingdom engaging with us on that. I hope everybody can put other things aside for the moment, but the larger problem is very real and has to be addressed at some
and
point.
he's destroying it. And as you know, I'm on the board of the Sir Winston Churchill D-Day Normandy Memorial Foundation in the US. I'm actually running it to do that, and for the Education Center. And it breaks my heart. And you know, I'm married to a daughter of the revolution, John.
Right.
So I'm a Hogar, husband of a daughter of the revolution.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So
I'm sure
I
love to see you coming at the parties, at the cocktail parties.
Well, you know, I never thought, you know, in the current thing, I don't know whether I can tell you this joke, but I never thought I'd have a company with the name trans in it. And I never thought I'd be called a hoe. Yeah, right. However, and this is the funny one, and I hope your listeners, you can either edit this out, John, because at least this is pre-recorded. But I was in the airport lounge, and I've got a very bad knee at the moment. I needed a wheelchair to take me to the plane. So they took me around the airport, and I need to go to the bathroom. So I'm in a particular airlines lounge, and they had the women's toilet, the women and men's toilet, and the men's toilet. And I had this person pushing the wheelchair, bearing in mind it's New York. And they said, where do you want to go? And I said, I'll go to the men's if you don't mind, because I don't want a woman walking in with a bigger penis than me. No, I'm sure that'll be edited out.
Yeah. Oh no, we'll keep it in. I mean, this is the insanity of the modern world we're living in. That's a joke, but it's not really a joke. That's the world. Yeah, it's shocking to me that this is what we're dealing with. But
so Dom Jr. worried about me getting banned and arrested here. I hope I don't get arrested on the way back.
When you come back, yeah. Well, I'll fight for you. You shake shaft.
But it's soon.
Good wishes to everyone in London today, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, John.
Okay, very good. All right, we're back with more in just a moment on the Reid Revolution. Stay with us. Back this morning on the Reid Revolution, I'm John Reid, and I am very glad to welcome a guy who I've watched up close when he was running, when he was in the House of Delegates, and now he's a part of the opposition, which might be more entertaining to be on the outside. You know, you can just really tell people exactly what you're thinking. Mark Earley joins us. Now, you have got to have mixed feelings here, because I watched you when you were in the House of Delegates. Sure. It seemed to me, from a distance at least, that you were a very serious legislator. You bit your tongue when there were clearly moments where I think you probably were ready to come out swinging. Now you don't have to worry about that anymore with the Democrat takeover. How are you feeling about things right now?
Well, I'll be honest. It was painful while I was in the General Assembly, and it's painful outside of it because, you know, both times we got a significant Republican minority. So when I was in there, we were doing a lot of banging our heads against the wall in terms of trying to get anything good done. And we were, unfortunately, even though when I was in, it was 41 to 59, or excuse me, 51 to 49. So it was razor thin. We were still getting steamrolled, right? But now that it's not quite a supermajority for the Democrats, but close to it, it's even more so. Although I do think it shows some of the cracks and dysfunction on their side, which is, I think it's there for everybody to see. But look, obviously it's frustrating for every Virginian to see what's going on. We had a governor who ran on this whole idea of affordability, which, look, let's be honest, even at the time, it was pretty easy to see through this. I mean, it was just a tagline with not a whole lot. There was really no meat on the bones, right? It was just a slogan that made everybody feel good. But now we really see it for what it is, which is basically affordable for me, but not for thee. I mean, when you have the tripling of your own salaries, when you have every tax increase under the sun, has anything gotten more affordable? I don't see it.
Yeah, what is it that they would point to say we won and we've been in office and here are the proposals that make things more affordable? I mean, and your point about tripling the salaries for the people in the legislature, I mean, what gall must it take to tell Virginia voters we're going to make things more affordable and then come in and give yourself that kind of pay increase right off the bat?
Well, I think one of the things it says is that they really do. There's not a lot of shame right now, and the contempt for the average person is through the roof. And we see that whether it's through the gerrymandering effort going on right now, whether it's just the in-your-face salary increase, whether it's the huge list of tax proposals. I mean, let's just steel man their argument for a minute. Try to be fair. They're going to say, here's how we did some more affordable things. We did this thing about increasing the minimum wage by a little bit. We did, we're going to have this paid family leave program. But almost when you dig into any of these things, the paid family leave is essentially just a payroll tax increase for everybody, right?
Right.
And some people might use it, some people might not. The minimum wage increase is, of course, a hit to businesses, right? It's everything is essentially taking from somebody and giving it to somebody else, as opposed to actually having thoughtful economic policy that generally brings down costs, that generally taxes people less. It's a very sort of pick and choose kind of policy, which I just don't think at the end of the day, when people actually see what has gone on and the results of it, I don't think they're going to buy it.
Well, they rushed right in and pushed a lot of this stuff through, and I think the consequences will be clear. You've had Boeing announcing that they're leaving Northern Virginia. They'll leave a couple of lobbyists up there and some of their operations, but I think that's the canary in the coal mine, where you see some large businesses that are saying, the Virginia that we bought into a decade ago, which was Democrat. I mean, those were Democrats leading a decade ago. I think Glenn Youngkin did a good job espousing conservative principles and wise fiscal responsibility in the state, but old Democrats can't really recognize the behavior so far of Governor Spanberger and her colleagues. It's a different group.
It's a very different group. And I will say, look, when I was in the legislature for 2 years, I tried to be nice to everybody and was friendly. But just to be totally honest, when you look at the kind of Democrats we have in Virginia as a whole is kind of a purple state. But the Democrats that are elected and in charge, they are as far left as anybody you're going to find in California or New York or anywhere else. That doesn't mean they're not nice enough people when you run into them in the hallway, but the policies they push really are no less far left than that. And I think one of the things that people, as these couple of months have unfolded with this first General Assembly session, especially with Spanberger leading, I really think there's 3 categories or buckets people need to be paying attention to. The first bucket is probably the one that you see, in the news daily, which is just bad policy. That's where you see the tax hikes. That's where you see the gun grabbing legislation. It's where you see the soft on crime. It's where you see and we can have a separate conversation about this, but the gambling everywhere, not getting rid of the car tax after they said they would. So you got the bad policy, right? And that's bad enough. But then the second thing you have is the dysfunction and self-dealing. That's where you get the tripling of the salaries. That's where you get, we're not even going to be able to have a budget on time, even though we control everything. We control everything, and it's not even close, and we still can't do it. But then the third bucket, which actually is the most dangerous, is the attempts going on to install a permanent power structure and essentially to end any competitive elections and change the processes so that power becomes permanent, right? The most obvious example of that is the gerrymandering fiasco. But then you have these bills like, oh, we're never going to hand count ballots again. I mean, we have some of the loosest election integrity laws here in Virginia or in the country. We have one of the longest periods of early voting, huge mail-in voting, and now apparently we're never going to hand count ballots again. These kind of things, and that's not even to mention the constitutional amendment that's going to give an automatic restoration of rights for even the worst of the worst felons, right?
Yeah, if you're a murderer or a rapist, and for some reason the Democrats let you out of prison, suddenly you're able to vote again.
Even if you killed somebody and that person's never going to get to vote again, you get to vote.
You do, yeah.
And look, I used to work in prisoner reentry, right?
Mhm.
I have a heart and a passion actually for making sure that for folks that are incarcerated, we actually do our best to try to prepare them, because most of them are going to come back into society. We want them to be successful, but that's totally in opposition to this idea of no accountability and pretending that nothing ever happened. And it's really sad. So anyway, what people need to focus on is bad policy, yes, self-dealing, yes, but then really pay attention to these attempts to get permanent power. And that's why the gerrymandering thing is the big thing right now. And unfortunately, it's got to be the focus of every conservative and Republican here in Virginia, and even a lot of independents for the next couple of weeks.
Between now and April 21st, Election Day, a lot of people still don't know, even though millions of dollars have been spent by the Democrats lying to the people of Virginia, pretty blatantly talking about how this is fair and balanced. You're taking a 6-5 Democrat majority in the United States House of Representatives from Virginia, and on paper, at least, turning it into a 10-1 Democrat majority. And I know people hate Donald Trump, or some people hate Donald Trump. Okay. But can you honestly look someone in the eye and say that that sounds fair when you look at the voter rolls and the voter, the election results? And we are kind of 55, 60% to 40% in the state. When you look at the presidential and you look at the gubernatorial election, I mean, it just boggles the mind that they can say this with a straight face. Do you think we have a chance of defeating this really manipulative idea between now and April 21st?
I do think we have a chance. I've heard you say before, and I've said it myself, I'm not, we shouldn't lie to people. It is going to be a David and Goliath kind of fight. Mm-hmm. They have vastly more money than we do. I think they've already spent or raised somewhere between 21 and 25 million.
Wow.
I think we have a couple million right now. I hope people realize that even though this sounds like a lot of money, it's a lot better investment to spend money now than to just wipe 4 Republican seats off the table and try to spend money later in the midterms. If you want to actually a bang for your buck on investment, try to save these seats now. So it's going to be tough. If you go back and read your Bible, David did win that fight. So it's certainly not impossible. But look, I think, again, going back to the contempt for the average person, I think people are starting to see that when you see the proposed maps. They're just so obviously gross, right? I mean, they're just so obviously absurd that it's hard for the average person to stomach that. Obviously, we passed this new process of having a nonpartisan commission with 67% of the vote. So it was overwhelming. The ballot language, I think, to the average person makes them scratch their head and say, this seems a little tilted. I mean, it is, and that's putting it lightly. I mean, it's essentially fraud on the people, right?
I feel like I'm getting hustled like the timeshare salesperson, up in the mountains. Don't you want this? This is going to be great for you. And then when you ask questions, you're shut down about it.
Yeah. And I do just want to take the argument head on, though, because we should be honest about it. So their explanation is, Trump did this, or look what Texas did. So, okay, here's the deal. You can either like that or not like that, but those seats have already been countered by what California did. Okay. Mm-hmm. So the idea that what they're doing here in Virginia is some direct response to that or countering of that is, number one, not true. Number two, the idea that this all started with Texas is also total bull. I mean, Illinois is one of the most gerrymandered states in the country, and it's been that way for a long time. There's 0 Republican congressional seats in New England. The idea that this started in Texas is just, come on. Let's be serious about it. And then, of course, our old friend Barack Obama comes in and does his video supporting the redistricting here. The guy's from Illinois. I mean, it's just
Right.
it's just a joke at the end of the day. It's a joke. And then one more thing about it. Even if the other arguments held, right? Even if, oh, Texas did this, whatever. Virginia is different, okay? Most other states have not done we did something very specific and unique in 2020 when we said, you know what? I tell you what, we are going to try to sort of take the high road, and we're going to try to get politics as much as possible. I mean, there's two sides to this. Number one, redistricting is just an inherently political process. We shouldn't pretend it's not. But we did our best to say we are going to minimize that and limit it as much as possible by having this different approach. Okay. And we changed how we did it, right? Everybody knowing that maybe sometimes that would benefit them, maybe sometimes it would harm them. But we went out and took that step. Most other states didn't do that, right? So even if all the other arguments held, we are indeed different here in Virginia, and we
A
should
constitutional amendment is a pretty significant step in trying to remove the hyper political element to this and say we're serious and we're at least going to start out trying to be fair.
Right.
What were the rules to make it compact, contiguous, and areas of common interest? And
That's right.
that's the exact opposite of what you're seeing here. You have all of these districts, 5 of them, anchored with voters in Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
So hypothetically, you could be living on a farm and you're represented by someone who lives in Northern Virginia and who's catering to that group of voters because you just don't have any leverage with them at the ballot box.
Yeah. I mean, again, when you look at the maps, the districts are silly. I mean, the one that everybody's pointing to that's probably the silliest of all is the Lobster or the Scorpion district, where, you know, I'm in Chesterfield. My neighbors that are a mile west of me, they're in Powhatan, are going to be controlled by folks up in Arlington. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And the other thing that I love about this is they say it's just a temporary change, right?
Yeah.
So let me make sure I understand this. And I want to see if this passes the smell test for anybody. So let's say this goes through, and instead of having 6 Democratic congressional folks from Virginia, you have 10. So that's 4 more. You're telling me that in a couple years, knowing the ego of these people, 4 of these people are just going to say, oh, no biggie. I was good. I enjoyed my time in service. I'm just going to step down, change the maps. I mean, come on. You have, you know, nobody believes that. Nobody believes that.
Why do you think Governor Spanberger is pushing this right out of the gate? I mean, I think she's doing a lot of damage to herself. I didn't vote for her. I was disappointed, obviously, with vested interest. But yeah, but I am really surprised that she is going into a 4-year term with this attitude. Glenn Youngkin, by contrast, there were a lot of us who were thinking, hey, Glenn Youngkin, come on, you won. You're the first Republican governor in a long time. You need to be really, really tough on these people and much more aggressive. And he was very conciliatory towards Democrats, even when they called him a racist and attacked him personally and, were ugly about his family. He kind of tried to rise above it, I think. Yeah. And you're not seeing 1 second of that from the Spanberger people.
Yeah. Listen, I think Abigail Spanberger is, unfortunately for all of us, a smart politician. She has always been a very savvy and smart politician. And that's bad for us because she pushes a lot of things that we don't agree with. She has, her entire career, been able to walk a very fine line of appearing to be a very moderate, soft-spoken person. But the policy, just like I mentioned, a lot of these folks in the legislature, she has always been way far to the left, right? Her voting record has never, ever echoed somebody that is actually a moderate. She has always been far left. And look, she, I'm not, some people say, oh, she's owned by some of the other Democrats. I don't really think I believe that. I think that she would not hold back if it was just up to her. And largely it is up to her. She, I think, truly believes in sort of the progressive plan, and she knows how to wield power. And unfortunately for all of us, she's doing it, and she's doing it to pretty good effect. Now, it's easier to hide sort of your real intentions just as a sort of a backbencher congressperson. As a governor, that's going to be harder. And I think we're going to see some of that. But again, I want people to be sort of sober about this, because here's the deal. We saw all these crazy bills come through the legislature, right? Now, that sort of shows their true desires, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're smart enough to show some restraint. So a lot of these things are going to get through, but not everything. They're going to hold back. And then Spanberger's not going to sign, or at least here's my prediction. She's not going to sign everything, right? Because she has done this her entire career. She wants to have some sort of plausible deniability of, oh, I'm still this moderate figure. But look, they got 4 years, and they're going to go this much, and then that much, and then that much, and then that much. They're going to get it all done at the end of the day. Mark my words, unfortunately, unless we can stop them. And obviously we have some chances to stop them. Well, the point is they're smart about, doing plotting through this process.
One of the things that might provide an opportunity is the on the ground deterioration of the society and the culture. I mean, you're in Chesterfield County. I'm in Henrico County. Yeah. Suburbs, for folks who aren't from Virginia who are watching this program, suburbs of the capital city of Richmond, which has long been a Democrat stronghold. But, in the last week alone, you've had takeovers of very nice neighborhoods in Henrico and on the edge of the city by folks who were just wilding. I'm told that there were 40 cars broken into in one night in some of the hotel areas around Western Henrico. I mean, I think we're beginning to see a deterioration in the feeling of safety that suburbanites, who've often split their votes, sometimes Republicans, sometimes Democrats, have felt. And when I wake up to headlines like that, the takeover of the neighborhoods and the robberies, it makes me think, oh my God, if I'm going to stay here, I better do something to stop this. That I don't feel safe the way I did even a couple of years ago.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, so many of the bills that have gone through are really a big blaring message to people saying, hey, we might not hold you accountable if you go out and do X, Y, or Z, which is crazy to me. I just don't understand it. The sort of signaling to folks that, hey, we're going to go soft on you. I mean, of course, we had this absolutely horrific incident up in Fairfax just a week or so ago.
Oh, yeah.
Poor mom, Stephanie Minter is her name, who got stabbed to death by a guy. And this is just, it's obviously tragic and horrific in its own right, but it is so infuriating because this was a result of choices, right? This guy has been in and out of the criminal justice system. I think he's 30 or 40 prior arrests. And then you add on that, he's not even here legally. He came here illegally. He already had a final deportation order. I mean, how many failures in the system does it take? And how many just decisions to look away does it take until this poor woman gets randomly stabbed to death at a bus stop? I mean,
and the Democrats haven't recalibrated off of it. It's not like there's been an apology or, oh, you're right, we need to get rid of people like this. They're ignoring her murder and justifying a lack of cooperation with the feds for people who are violent criminals. I don't get how you survive politically when that's your attitude and behavior.
Yeah, no, they've been throwing sand in the gears for any kind of enforcement, not just regular law enforcement, but especially when it comes to immigration enforcement, obviously, and that's partially just because they have a completely reactive reaction to anything that, this president or anything that comes from DC does. So, if he says, I like turkey sandwiches, they hate turkey sandwiches. I mean, and it's become silly, but it's not silly in the way that they have come to push back on very common sense policies. And when they do that, it leads to these kind of situations. And you're right. I mean, the public safety issue is huge. It's huge. I mean, of all the things that government is supposed to do, right? And, I would still claim to be a, small government conservative. Of all the things that we have government do, this is actually one that's a core function. Okay. Public safety is actually a basic core function of government. And it's just crazy to me that we turn our eyes from it and focus on so many other ridiculous things, and then actually put in harmful policies that are not just ineffective, but actually harmful. And yeah. I'll say, this is a different conversation. Maybe we can talk about another time, and this might get me in trouble. But I'm just not a fan of all of this vice legislation either. I'm not a fan of gambling on every street corner, on every iPhone. I'm not a fan of marijuana everywhere. Where you look at the places where this has happened, and some people would say, "Oh, well, aren't you small government? Don't you, this, that, and the other?" I think one of the basic roles of government also is essentially to, not with a heavy hand, but with a light hand, make it a little bit harder for people to basically fall into a life of vice. And you want to make it easy for people to follow a path of virtue, right? You can't force them to do it. You can't force them to do it, but you can do certain things that don't throw vice in their face, right? And just this massive expansion of gambling, the massive weed expansion that unfortunately we're going to get. I mean, Spanberger is going to sign something like that. But when you look at other states that have done that, the black market doesn't go away. Actually, it grows in a lot of instances. The public safety issues go up, and the stuff, not that I'm really a user, but my understanding is the stuff that we have today just ain't what our parents smoked back in the day. It's just wildly stronger stuff that is more and more links to mental health issues and all that sort of thing. So
and chronic addiction. I think we're going to see that as a real problem, which will blow up the costs of healthcare in Virginia for the individual and for the insurance companies, and then ultimately for the government, because we're creating patients that never can get back to stability. And I think you look at Portland and Seattle and San Francisco as experiments in this world, and it hadn't worked out well for the people.
And the justification is always the same. It's always, well, we can get a little revenue out of this. Like, revenue. Look, we need some revenue. And I wish we were actually using the revenue to do a lot of the things that we should be doing, like public safety. But just because you can milk a little money out of something isn't a good enough reason to do it. Okay. So a message to all of our folks, and this goes to Republicans and Democrats, somebody hanging a little revenue in front of your face, be wary of that. Okay. Especially when so much of the revenue we get when Democrats are in control is not only poorly spent, but it's spent actively against you. So think a little more about it.
Well, you know what? You get to sit on the outside and point out everybody's errors, and I think they're making a lot of them. And I value your voice, Mark Earley. Thank you for not going away, but being engaged in the debate here. People have got to know that there is an alternative. Once they get that tax on the dog groomer or on the mattress, did you see that Ghazala Hashmi broke the tie, and now we're going to have a tax on mattresses, apparently, assuming the governor goes for that. I think people aren't going to like it.
We should start just sleeping on the hardwood floor, I guess, right?
You can't tax me for that. The tax oxygen.
Well, I'll leave you with this, which I know you know this. I mean, we're every single conservative, but really even independent folks in Virginia, it's time to wake up and look around and see what's happening. And especially in the next few weeks on this gerrymandering thing, you got to get engaged. You got to get out. We do have a good chance, I think, just based on the common sense arguments, but people got to get involved. And listen, I'm, John, I think like you, I'm from Virginia. I don't intend to leave. And I think we got to do everything we can to save our Commonwealth here. And the fight is now.
All right. We will be tracking it all the way till April 21st. Let's talk again. Mark Earley, former member of the House of Delegates and now just a fighter from the outside. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Godspeed.
Okay. Appreciate it. All right. We're going to come back with more in just a moment here on the Reid Revolution. Stay with me. Well, that's good to talk to Mark Earley. I appreciate it. Every time I talk to the guy, I feel like he's really grounded and he's a normal person. He's got a very interesting personal story with his family that's not my story to tell. But and I don't even think he really exploited it in his campaign materials, but he's an interesting guy, and he's kind of the opposite of what everybody says Republicans are. All the baloney about racism and everything. You should look up Mark Earley, and it's a shame that he's not at the Capitol.
Well, I knew his as with you, I knew his dad before I knew him.
Yeah.
But yeah, quite a family. I really appreciated the point that he made about California with regard to the gerrymandering. I mean, no matter what you think about what happened in Texas, that's been counterbalanced already. So the Democrats here cannot say that they are trying to level any playing field. That is just not true. And as Bob McDonnell said yesterday, and as Mark Earley reiterated today, as Tim Anderson talked about a few weeks ago, look, I do care who started things. I think who started things matters. The Democrats, the leftists started this process a whole long time ago. In no way,
They're
shape,
just
or
mad that
form.
everybody noticed
Yeah.
that they gerrymander. They're mad
Yeah,
that
it's-
everyone finally put two and two together. I mean, they started gerrymandering states where they had control, and they wiped out any representation for Republicans. And you can document that in Massachusetts and elsewhere, much of the Northeast, where there's no Republican representation, even though there's a significant
I have a
Republican
graph I'll
vote.
bring for
And
tomorrow.
you also
Yeah.
have a situation where they have flooded the zone with illegal immigrants, and they know that the current rules, and I hope Trump's going to change this, the current rules count people, not citizens, towards the census and towards representation. So they knew exactly what they were doing. They flooded the zone around Democrat-controlled areas so that that would have extra weight and there would be more Democrats in Congress. And, you know, if you're not paying attention, I mean, it's like, you know what, Dan? It's like the difference between you watching a football game and me watching a football game. I know what's going on, but I don't care. And I can't dissect every play, and I don't give a damn about it. And I'm not interested in trying to understand every play. However, you or Alonzo or my dad, or I mean, you know, there are plenty of people who they can watch the play live on television, and they can dissect what just happened, the techniques behind what just happened, and analyze the play. Well, the same thing happens in government and politics, in electoral politics. Once you actually know the tricks that are being used to try to rig something, it's really quite remarkable that the Democrats have gotten away with it as long as they have. And thank goodness Donald Trump and others are calling them out on this bad behavior.
Yeah, and to be fair, I probably would be equally lost if I were trying to assess or critique a Broadway musical. So you know, you
would.
have that on
Yes,
me.
yes.
So
Well, I've been reminded on a regular basis how very valuable people find my artistic interests to be. And you know, unfortunately, this is a little sideline. Unfortunately, and I don't know whether you saw what I sent you, the arts community is so corrupted and so disgusting these days, and that hurts me because you'll never find someone who will advocate for the arts more than me. Probably not. There's probably nobody in the Republican Party who would advocate more for the arts on any given day than I would. But I've reached a place where I recognize that a lot of the people who are creators, performers, composers, singers, dancers, they have all been either brainwashed or they are not allowed. They have accepted their status as mutes within the society if they want to participate. I mean, let's just take the Richmond art scene. If you are a conservative and you're known to be a conservative in the Richmond art scene, you're probably not gonna perform here. You won't get cast, and I can think of one person who kind of keeps it a secret from their friends. They have like two very segregated sets of friends, Republican friends and arts friends, and they don't let them interface because this person, if the arts crowd knew that they were a Republican, they'd never work again. And that's largely what you find in New York and in Washington and elsewhere. I had a great friend in D.C. who was one of the founding directors of a really remarkable theater company up in Northern Virginia. Great, they did great work. I saw so many shows there, and they premiered things and they workshopped things. It was really interesting that this person I went to dinner with him once in London and said, what made you, how did you come up with the idea for this theater and find the funding for it? And, it started with a letter to a composer, and the composer wrote this guy back. And the next thing you know, he's built something that was really special and really good. And I knew we didn't share the same politics. That didn't bother me. I mean, we disagreed. It was okay. But boy, when Trump got elected, man, I was cut off, and that was it. And I had been nothing but polite and nice. I mean, there'd been occasional, I don't know, skirmishes is not the right word, because it wasn't even that, just occasional disagreements. But boy, once Trump was elected, I was not spoken to again. And I finally got to a point where I unsubscribed from the theater, because I thought I just can't continue to spend my money to undermine everything I believe, especially when it's openly hostile. I'm open to hearing from other people and what they think. It's cool with me. I've learned things from being around people who don't agree with me. I'm not that hard-headed. I'm happy to understand what other people are thinking. But they just crossed the line completely. And here's an example, producer Dan. I think you've got this. Luigi Mangione is on trial for killing the CEO of United Healthcare, murdering him on a New York street right in front of the Hilton in New York. I don't think there is any doubt that he did it in reality. I mean, I know there are people out there, oh, he didn't do it because, and then they wink and they nod like, we can get him off because he's so good looking. The guy had a really ripped up body and is young and good looking. So, there's a percentage of our society, and I'm surprised by this, who are so, if you're good looking, you can get away with anything. You think it's always been that way? Maybe to a certain extent, but with social media, it's out of control. These crazies in the art community in New York have written a musical about Luigi Mangione, the murderer, and people are buying tickets and going to it. And it's garbage. I mean, it's camp, gay, stupid garbage. Take a look at this little clip. I don't want to play the whole thing, but take a look.
Lawyer's instructions, I am inclined to remind you that I am being held here against my will for the alleged involvement in the murder of a CEO.
I'm not talking about any CEO.
Okay, well, I don't know what else you could be referring to. I was valedictorian. I went to an Ivy League school. I actually had a pretty impressive background up until a few months ago when I
became a bad boy.
Well, no. Goodness and badness are constructs of an ethical dilemma. You could pose any predicament and find that what seems right in one context might be
so very right in another.
The lines that we see, they're fuzzy and they come together in ways that might feel wrong, but are actually right.
Kind of like those eyebrows.
I mean, that's gross. That's great, and it's not the gay
homoeroticism.
Weird. Well, that's not even homoerotic. That's just weird, right? That is just weird. That is weird, and it's offensive. And they're laughing. Is the audience actually aware there's a man with children who's been murdered on the streets of New York? They're going to walk out of that theater after seeing the show, and I just hope that we have responsible citizens who, even though they're offended by that program, that production, that idea, they won't go and kill the people in the audience who were a part of that. But they seem to, they're sitting there laughing at it like it's a sitcom comedy routine. This is sick and twisted.
Well, the other
I mean, I could watch
I
could watch Family Guy or South Park and laugh
right
in a cartoon situation. It's very outrageous. It's it's over the line, it's over the top, it's gross and inappropriate. But in the context of a little animated video, I can laugh at most of that stuff, even if it crosses the line, because part of it's the format that it's just in your house and it's a cartoon. But to mount a show like that with a real person in the city where the man was murdered and sit there and laugh at it like you have no moral compass at all. Am I the only person who finds that really offensive and not a sign of a healthy society?
No, you're not. You're not. And again, one of the other ironies about this is that the CEO murdered was somebody who was pretty much a self-made man. I think picked himself up from the bootstraps and made a way for himself, was not born into any sort of wealth or anything else like that. But on the other hand, I think Luigi Mangione did come from a fairly well-off family.
Yeah, good point.
And
Yeah.
it's you know, we're celebrating the guy who actually did come from some privilege and cheering on the murder of someone who was someone who made himself out of relative nothing. So
and we're resetting the standards in the society. And that to have a Luigi musical in New York City, that people, it's not just something that people are smoking dope and drunk, coming up with a stupid idea one night at 2:00 in the morning in somebody's basement. They've found donors and investors. They've cast a cast. They've rented a stage. They've put together. I mean, it looked pretty cheap and junky to me. And even by New York standards, I'm surprised that it looks so junky and cheap. But you're putting all this together and you're celebrating the reset of the standards that a random person, whether that person is rich or poor, honestly, whether they have been wronged or not, that it's okay to murder someone on the streets of New York. I mean, I don't know the guy who was killed. I don't know there's plenty to complain about when it comes to insurance companies. I could probably complain about every company that's out there. You can complain about a certain cell company today that's screwing you over last night and this morning. That doesn't mean you get to go out and kill somebody because you feel like they have wronged you or you feel like they've wronged someone else or they've wronged society. If that's the case, seriously, if that's the new standard, somebody let me know, because I am sure there are people whose children have died from fentanyl overdoses who would be glad to go into downtown Richmond tonight with a black mask on and just blow away anybody who looks like a drug dealer or has anything to do with that. If I were a legislator at the Capitol, I would be very careful about resetting the standards. There are people who really hold elected officials and legislators accountable for bad results in people's lives, whether that was the intention or not. If you want to reset the standard, you need to be careful, because there'll be people who will show up at the Capitol and blow your brains out. I would think you would not want to do that. If you got a problem with the law, and look, these Democrats, I've got tons of problems with the things they're doing. Are you telling me that you're going to reset society where you can kill someone because you don't like the law they passed? I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think that's a good idea. Let's not let that happen. But the arts community is so reckless and irresponsible. And God forbid someone in the New York arts community condemned this, like, this crosses a line, this is wrong, no, we're not going to tolerate it. I bet you they would be brutalized for somehow being promoting censorship instead of promoting decency in the society. And it would kill their career.
The oppressor. Ooh, the oppressor.
This whole narrative. This whole narrative. I mean, if you're talking about the oppressor in the United States in 2026,
it's not the CEO. It's not.
How do we have a serious conversation?
Sure.
Yeah. How do we have a serious conversation?
It's not Whitey. Not anymore.
Yeah,
that's for sure. So yeah.
Well, did you have any other best and worst of the internet today?
I did have the Washington Post taking stabs at editorials for famous people, fictional or not. So yeah,
Okay.
why don't we take a look at that really fast? That was, I guess, amusing. I guess.
Austrian-born public servant and amateur artist passed away quietly in Berlin due to a self-inflicted wound. A mustachioed, avuncular team builder known for his commitment to workforce relocation initiatives and surprise performance reviews. A visionary agricultural reformer who popularized the Zhongshan suit. A career palace advisor who briefly streamlined agribus leadership through hypnotic negotiations. A passionate advocate for organizational efficiency within the galactic empire. An ambitious alumnus of Hogwarts who pursued innovative soul fragmentation strategies and led a passionate pureblood advocacy group.
I mean, obviously, they're mocking the way the Washington Post and the New York Times kind of rewrote and whitewashed the murderous regime of the Ayatollah Khomeini in Iran. And look, I think it's very interesting to pull perspective on people and say, are you aware of every aspect of who this person is if you're writing the bio? But come on, you can't whitewash it and rewrite the bio where the harm they've done, which is not subjective. It's not just me not liking the position like Democrats do with Donald Trump. You can hate Donald Trump. You can hate George W. Bush. You can hate Ronald Reagan. I love Ronald Reagan. You can hate Ronald Reagan if you want to. You need to be able to articulate why you think their policies were bad. But there is this really bizarre thing that's happening in America today where the media and the folks who kind of shape public opinion, which is changing, the nature of those people and the number of people who influence public opinion, they vilify and trash someone like Charlie Kirk, who I don't know whether you agree with everything Charlie Kirk said. I'm sure if I watched 10 hours of Charlie Kirk, there'd be something I didn't.
I don't agree with everything Charlie Kirk said.
Okay,
so I mean
that's fine.
Use me as an example.
But to act like he deserved to get a bullet in the neck, and that he was some sort of wild bigot who was out harming people, that's just not factually correct. That's not culturally acceptable to advocate for his killing. Not culturally acceptable, any more than it would be to advocate for the killing of Jesse Jackson or the killing of Martin Luther King or I mean, I really despise the senator from Maine, Bernie Sanders.
Susan Collins?
I really despise Bernie Sanders.
Oh,
hate
Vermont.
Vermont.
Yeah.
I really hate Bernie Sanders, but I don't think Bernie Sanders should be killed. I think he should be defeated. I think he should be tossed out of office because he's got bad ideas, and it looks to me like he's corrupt. To me, somebody like him who is now loaded with money, who preaches a socialist mindset, I mean, I would think that the socialists would have a problem with him, but I don't think that he should be murdered. So these people, they create a narrative that someone they disagree with is totally evil and their death is a net benefit to society, instead of objectively discussing what they did. But then someone who is truly responsible for terrorism around the world for 50 years, 40 years, they whitewash it and act like the fact that they have a bushy beard or a nice smile, in their opinion, somehow that deserves to be in the headline. This is craziness. This is absurd. I don't know why. I'm glad this person mocked it and ridiculed it in a way that maybe people could understand the parallels.
Yeah, no, I concur wholeheartedly. Yeah, especially about Bernie Sanders, who it's funny. It's before it was like, we have to stop all the millionaires. We have to stop the millionaires. You're a millionaire. The billionaires.
Yeah.
We got to stop the billionaires. They're not good. But yeah, it's
well, when you dig around, you don't find modern socialist leaders who live like Gandhi, in some little hut on a wooden bed with one pair of sandals and live very modestly. You just don't find it. That's not the way they live. They're very angry with everybody else and I actually think a lot of them aren't mad. They just see other people as a way to take wealth and do what they want to do. And so they vilify somebody for that. And if you really, I mean, we should do a show like that at some point, Producer Dan, where we go through, let's just say, the top 10 people who advocate for socialist policies in the United States and try to get real numbers, objective details about their lives. What house do they live in? What is their net worth? What have they done to volunteer
how
and
much
help
money
other
did they have
groups?
before they went to Washington?
Yeah.
How much money do they have now? They're also worried about Donald Trump trying to keep the money that he legitimately made. I'm far more worried about the so-called public servant who went to Washington making probably more money than even they should as is, a couple $100,000 a year or several $100,000 a year.
Maybe.
And they become millionaires many times over. It's like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
So-
And how is everybody else working their butt off?
Right.
12, 15, 16 hours a day, barely making ends meet. But then they go to D.C. and suddenly, their family member gets put on a board with a six-figure salary, and the board meets 4
generational
times
wealth.
a year. Yeah, there's a lot of shady stuff happening, and I'm not saying it's 100% with Democrats, but the Democrats are the ones who are advocating this socialist mindset. So I would actually be impressed if you are a socialist and you live in a small apartment and you use wood in the fireplace in the wintertime and you just bundle up in bed and you wear a sweater. If you live a modest lifestyle and you advocate for socialism, I'm not going to live that way. Don't get me wrong. I have no intention of living the way you want to live, but at least I would respect the consistency that you're living a modest life and you find the excesses of capitalism to be too much. Now, I still don't think you get to impose your will on other people, but I would respect somebody who actually lives it. But they don't. I mean, in general, perhaps I'm mistaken. Maybe I've missed something. I would really love to know if we could identify people who advocate socialism and live very modest lifestyles. Like they don't have an iPhone.
Right.
They reject all of the things that capitalism has made possible and that slavery on the other side of the planet has made possible too.
Hey, I have a really nice phone. It just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. Oh, listen, don't get pretty. We'll be here for another hour if we get producer Dan going about this.
It's true, and Virginia's already
cell phone
tipped off. So.
Yeah. Are you going to
No,
get
I don't
the phone
begrudge a
thing
man. I
settled
don't
by
begrudge
tomorrow?
any man for making an honest living. I begrudge the person who makes a living off of my back, off of your back and my back. That's the problem.
Don't steal from me. Don't steal from me. I'm not really interested, other than building roads and, in my opinion, paying for police. And a couple of other I really think that we need to collapse the government into the basics and tell everybody you got to pay your own bills. I mean, you know how stressed you and I are trying to make things work. I mean, I would love to see public broadcasting say, you know what, John Reid and producer Dan, they have a really unique perspective that isn't normally a part of the public broadcasting mantra. So let's give them $1 million a year to produce their podcast. Has anybody called you to say that we would be the counterbalance to the mindset that currently exists at PBS because they want philosophical balance and they want to help? Hell no. Hell no.
I haven't gotten that call.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, real quick. Are you going to get the cell phone situation settled by tomorrow? Are you?
I intend to. I intend to go find it. It's a long story. I posted about it on my Facebook page. If you follow me there, you can see the story. Oh yeah, with all the evidence to back me up. But it's pretty bad. I've been the victim of criminal fraud. There's no doubt. Who's the perpetrator? I don't quite know. But yeah, it's been a nightmare situation to deal with for about 18 hours. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, you do realize how connected. I mean, if you don't have a phone in the modern era, you're in trouble.
Well, there were a
I
couple
started
times when
having
we were at
anxiety attacks.
WRVA, and speaking of which, I hope that you have a decent time tonight at the event.
Tonight's the
Beacon
100th birthday party
Yeah.
for WRVA.
My
So I'll
invite
be
got
at
lost
the
in the mail
Beacon Theater in
somehow.
Hopewell tonight.
There were a couple times at WRVA where we dealt with mass cell outages, and it really, really disrupted our mornings. basically couldn't. It was a miracle that we got through the 4 hours of show.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a problem. But, yeah.
Well, all of that stuff not created by socialists, I'll tell you.
No,
all of
definitely
the
not.
great technology
But,
that everyone's using every day, not created by socialists or Democrats.
But I'm proud of us. We overcame some real technological hurdles today and put on a show, maybe our longest ever show yet. So yeah, we made it. We made it work.
2 hours and 25 minutes.
Yeah.
We're getting close to like a Castro speech.
This is
at
a Christopher
point.
Nolan movie all of a sudden.
Yeah. All right. Well, having said that, Producer Dan, let me let you go and deal with the phone thing. I hope I will see some of you tonight at the Beacon Theater in Hopewell, Virginia for the centennial 100th birthday celebration for WRVA Radio. As a native Virginian, as a Richmonder, I am very thankful to have been a part of the WRVA story and broadcast history of a legendary station like that. So I'm appreciative of the chance to join them for a couple of minutes tonight to talk about that history. I think it's important. I don't know what the future is going to be for broadcast radio and television, especially as it starts to compete with products like this and other entities. But I do think 100 years is something, whether you're a person or a company or, legendary radio station, it's something that you should acknowledge and celebrate. And I'll be happy to be with them tonight for that. But don't worry, I will be up tomorrow for another edition of the Reid Revolution. Hope it's a great Thursday for you.